Hello everyone. Welcome to the Six Path Weeb channel. Today's fanfiction discussion explores an intriguing what-if scenario from the Naruto universe. What if Naruko fell in love with Tobi, before discovering his true identity? Disclaimer. This channel is dedicated to fan-based entertainment and discussion. I do not claim ownership of any anime footage featured in my videos. All rights belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Let's dive into it. The first time Naruko saw him, she didn't know who he was. Not really. She was standing at the edge of a lake, her reflection dancing across the surface as the wind stirred the water. The moon was full, casting silver light across the trees. She liked this place, quiet, tucked far away from the bustle of the allied shinobi camps. Out here, no one asked her questions. No one whispered behind her back. No one talked about the war in hushed, serious voices that made her stomach twist. Just the trees, the stars, and the occasional toad if she stayed still long enough. She heard the crunch of leaves behind her. Without turning, she said, "I know you're there." Silence. Then, after a pause, a voice, soft, calm, and oddly light-hearted. Most people would be more alarmed when they sense a stranger sneaking up behind them. Naruko spun around, fists raised instinctively. But her brow furrowed the moment she saw him. The man was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a long black cloak with red clouds stitched into the fabric. But what stood out most was his mask. Orange, spiraling inward toward one eye hole. It was strange, like he was peering at her from a different world. Naruko narrowed her eyes. "You're Akatsuki." The man tilted his head. "Guilty, I suppose." Her stance didn't change. "Why are you here? Shouldn't you be hiding in a volcano or something with the rest of your creepy crew?" He chuckled softly. "You're not like the others." "Thanks," she said flatly. "I didn't come to fight," he added, raising his hands. "Believe it or not." She blinked. "Then what? You got bored being evil?" "No," he said, almost sounding amused. "I just wanted to see you. The girl everyone keeps talking about." That made her pause. "Me?" He nodded. "Naruko Uzumaki. Jinchuriki. The girl who somehow keeps smiling in the middle of a war." She shifted her weight, uneasy. "Okay. Well, you saw me. Now you can go." But he didn't move. His presence wasn't threatening exactly, more like a shadow that didn't quite belong. He stood at a comfortable distance, not trying to corner her, not reaching for a weapon. Just watching. Naruko crossed her arms. "You're weird." "And yet," he said, "you're not running." "I don't run," she said firmly. "Not even from me?" "I don't even know who you are." That made him quiet for a moment. Then he said, almost thoughtfully, "Maybe that's the point." The silence stretched between them, filled only by the wind and the soft ripple of the lake behind her. Naruko didn't know why she didn't yell for backup. Or why she didn't summon a clone and start flinging Rasengans. Something about him felt different. Not kind, exactly, but not cruel either. Like he was stuck between things. "I've had dreams about you," she blurted before she could stop herself. The man tilted his head again. "Oh?" She flushed. "Not like that. I mean, they weren't bad dreams. But you were there. With the mask. And we were talking. Just talking. It was weird." His voice lowered a little. "Dreams are strange things. Sometimes they're more real than what we wake up to." Naruko looked at him more closely now. "Do I know you?" The man didn't answer. He turned, the fabric of his cloak stirring softly as he stepped back into the trees. "You shouldn't be out here alone," he said over his shoulder. "And you should stop sneaking around like some creepy owl in a hoodie," she shot back. He paused. Then, with the barest hint of amusement in his voice, he said, "Good night, Naruko." And he vanished. Naruko Uzumaki had always been a thinker, not the kind who buried her nose in books like Shikamaru or rambled in theories like Kakashi, but a quiet kind of thinker. She thought when the world around her slowed down. She thought in moments when she wasn't smiling or yelling or chasing someone around the training fields. Moments when no one was watching. Moments like now. She sat on a high branch in the woods, arms wrapped around her knees, eyes on the stars above. It had been a week since she met the masked man at the lake. Tobi, as she'd heard others call him, though no one really knew who he was beneath that mask. She'd only spoken with him for a few minutes. But it felt longer. Not because of what he said, but because of how he said it. Calm, like he was used to silence. Gentle, but distant. Not like someone who wanted to hurt her. Not even like someone hiding something terrible. He'd said he wanted to see her. Her. Not the Nine Tails. Not the host or the Jinchuriki. Not the weapon. Just Naruko. That stuck with her. She hugged her legs tighter and whispered into the wind, "Who are you really?" The silence didn't answer, but her heart did. She wasn't supposed to care. He was an enemy. He was part of Akatsuki, the organization that had hunted Jinchuriki like animals. That had caused suffering in every village, every clan. But she wasn't feeling fear. Or anger. She was feeling curiosity. A lot of it. The next time she saw him, it wasn't in a dream or a misty clearing. It was during a mission. She and Sai were assigned to deliver supplies to a hidden bunker on the outskirts of the Land of Fire. The route was quiet, and the work uneventful. Sai didn't talk much, which Naruko didn't mind. Her thoughts were too loud lately anyway. They were halfway through the delivery when she felt something shift in the air. Not chakra. Not danger. A presence. "I'm going to scout ahead," she told Sai casually. He didn't question her. "Be careful." She darted into the trees. He was there, waiting, like he had always been part of the forest. The swirling mass caught the sunlight through the leaves, but his posture was relaxed. "You felt me this time," he said, a little surprised. "I was thinking about you," she replied. He didn't answer right away. "You shouldn't be," he said quietly. "Too late," she said, folding her arms. They stood in silence for a while. Finally, she asked, "Why do you keep coming back?" He looked up at the sky. "Maybe I'm asking myself the same thing." Naruko sat on a low stump and looked at him. "Everyone thinks you're evil. Dangerous. The worst of the worst. And what do you think?" She didn't answer at first. "I don't know yet. But I don't think I'm scared of you." He stepped closer, just a little. "You should be." She shook her head. "If you were going to hurt me, you would have done it already." His hand clenched at his side. "I've done things," he said. "Things you'd never forgive." "Then tell me." He paused. "I can't," he said. "Not yet." She didn't push. "Then stay." "I shouldn't." "But you want to." And he did. He sat across from her on a mossy rock. They didn't talk about plans or battles or betrayal. Instead, she told him about her dreams, not the strange ones with masked figures, but the real ones. Becoming Hokage. Making the village smile. Helping people who felt small. He listened. She watched the way he tilted his head, the slow, steady way he breathed. She still didn't know what he looked like behind the mask, but in those moments, it didn't matter. What she cared about wasn't the face. It was the way he made space for her voice. Days passed. Then weeks. He came more often now, always when no one else was watching. Sometimes she found him waiting for her by a quiet stream or sitting under a tree near the training fields. Once, she found a piece of paper with a sketch of a toad balancing on a ramen bowl. He'd left it on her sleeping roll during a long camp. She laughed when she saw it. "You draw?" "I used to," he said later. "Why stop?" "I forgot how." She gave the drawing a home in her pocket, near her chest. Naruko didn't tell anyone. Not Kakashi, not Sakura, not even Yamato, who noticed her sneaking off more often. She made up excuses, little ones. She didn't like lying, but this didn't feel like a lie. It felt personal. Tobi had never touched her. Never raised his voice. Never even let his guard down, but that only made her want to know him more. He listened. He remembered what she liked. He never asked for anything. Sometimes she wondered if he was lonely too. So one day, she asked, "Do you have any friends?" He looked at her, still a stone. "Not anymore," he said. "Did you?" she asked gently. He nodded. "Once. A long time ago." "What happened?" "I lost them." She reached forward, not touching, just reaching. "You didn't lose me." The silence that followed was longer than usual. Then, softly, he said, "You don't even know who I am." She started seeing him in her dreams again, but now they felt less like fantasy and more like memory. She saw a boy with dark hair, smiling through leaves. She saw hands reaching for help, then falling into shadow. She heard voices, two boys, a girl, a teacher's voice, a promise shouted into the sky. It didn't make sense. But it felt real. Naruko kept those dreams to herself. She began to think of him between meetings and missions. She'd daydream while stirring miso ramen or while brushing snow off a scroll. She wondered what he liked. Whether he had a favorite food. If he could laugh more than just the tiny, soft chuckle she'd earned from him. She started to smile when she felt his chakra nearby, subtle and strange. This wasn't a crush. Not like how she used to moon over Sasuke in the academy, not like the way Ino wrote poems in the margins of her mission reports. This was slower. Softer. A warmth that grew between words. Then, one afternoon, everything changed. They sat on the edge of a quiet waterfall, listening to the rush of water below. Naruko turned to him and said, "I like you." He was quiet for so long she thought he hadn't heard. "I know," he said. "That doesn't scare you?" He shook his head. "But it should." She frowned. "You keep saying that. Like you're warning me." "I am." "Why?" He didn't answer. "Are you afraid I'll stop liking you when I learn the truth?" Still, silence. "I don't care what you did before," she said. "People change." "Not me," he said. "You're falling in love with a shadow, Naruko." She looked straight at him. Even shadows need light. It was raining the next time they met. Naruko sat beneath a wide oak tree, arms around her knees, the drizzle tapping lightly against the leaves above her. She wasn't hiding from the storm, she just liked how quiet the world became in the rain. Even birds took shelter. Even thoughts slowed down. She didn't hear him arrive. She just felt it, that subtle shift in the air, like someone stepping into a memory. She didn't look up. "You're late." Tobi stood there, barely visible through the curtain of rain, the orange spiral mask damp but unchanged. "I was waiting," she added softly. "I wasn't sure I should come." Naruko finally looked up at him. "But you did." He stepped closer, silent. He didn't sit. Just stood near the edge of the tree's canopy, water running off his cloak in steady rivulets. She studied him. She had no idea what his eyes looked like. She only ever saw the one, dark, unreadable. The mask was part of him now, like a second skin. But lately, she'd found herself wondering, what was he hiding from? The world? Or her? "You know," she said gently, "I've never even seen your face." He didn't respond. "I've seen you listen. I've seen you care. I've seen you leave without saying goodbye. But not your face." Tobi said nothing. Naruko tilted her head. "Why do you wear it? Really?" There was a long pause. Then. "It reminds me who I'm supposed to be." Her brows furrowed. "Supposed to be?" "I chose this path. A long time ago. The mask keeps me from looking back." "But you do look back," she said quietly. "I can see it. Every time we talk." He stepped forward, just enough for the shadows to shift across his form. "I shouldn't let you get this close." "But you did." He turned away slightly, like he was trying to hide from her and himself at the same time. "You don't know what you're asking," he said. "I'm not asking," Naruko whispered. "I'm offering." A moment passed. Then he raised his hand to his mask. Her breath caught. His fingers paused on the edge of the spiral, lingering near the place where mask met skin. The rain eased slightly, like even the storm was holding its breath. Slowly, he lifted it. She saw part of a jawline. A pale cheek. Dark hair sticking wetly to skin. He stopped. And then he lowered the mask again. "I can't," he said, voice rough. "Why not?" "Because if you see me, it won't be soft anymore." Her voice was barely a whisper. "You think I'll hate you?" "I know you will." She stood up then, rain sliding down her cloak, her hair sticking to her face. She walked closer, close enough that their reflections shimmered together in a puddle at their feet. "I'm not in love with your mask," she said. "And I'm not afraid of your face." He stood there, unmoving. "I'm afraid of losing what we have," she admitted. "But not because of what you look like. Because of what you won't let me see." Tobi's hand twitched slightly. "Don't you want someone to see you? The real you?" He looked away. "I did," he said. "Once. And now? I don't know if he still exists." Naruko reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, weathered drawing, the one he'd given her weeks ago. The toad balancing on a bowl of ramen. She held it out to him. "You're still him. Somewhere." He took the drawing gently, holding it like it might dissolve in the rain. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then he said, "I've never had this before. Not like this. Naruko blinked. What do you mean? This kind of peace. The kind that doesn't ask me to be anyone. The kind that doesn't come with expectations or orders or lies. You think this is peace? He nodded. With you? Yes. She reached for his hand. It wasn't a dramatic touch, or a swooning gesture. Just her fingers brushing his, both sets rough from training, damp from rain, warm despite it all. He didn't pull away. They stood like that under the oak tree, two people, not hero and villain, not mask and prophecy, but simply Naruko and the boy behind the spiral. The storm passed. But he didn't. Not yet. The first dream came quietly, slipping into Naruko's sleep like a whisper through a keyhole. She was in the middle of the forest, but not the one she knew. The trees here were taller, older. The wind hummed through the leaves in a tune she didn't recognize. She stepped forward, not knowing why she was barefoot or why the moss was warm beneath her feet. A boy stood near the base of a tree, back turned to her. He had dark, unruly hair. His clothes were simple, a tan jacket, a green scarf wrapped too many times around his neck. He was leaning against the bark, sketching something into the dirt with a stick. Naruko opened her mouth to speak, but no words came. Her voice stayed lodged in her throat, silent. The boy turned his head slightly, just enough for her to see the corner of his cheek. His face was younger than she expected. Bright. He didn't have the heavy posture she'd come to recognize in Tobi. This boy had light in his bones. She tried to call out. He didn't hear. From the trees, another figure emerged, this time, a girl. Long hair, bright eyes. She waved at the boy. He dropped the stick immediately and ran toward her, stumbling slightly on the roots. Naruko watched as they laughed. She didn't know their names. Not yet. But she knew, deep in her chest, that she was watching his memory. Not hers. This was Tobi's past. And in it, he had been happy. The next night, the dream came again. This time, the boy was older, standing in a training field, panting hard, mud streaked down his face. A taller boy with cold eyes stood opposite him, arms crossed. A white-haired man with a kind face stood between them, nodding slowly. Kakashi, Naruko mouthed. She recognized the silver hair, the quiet confidence. The boy, Tobi, but not yet Tobi, stood straighter, though his legs shook. I'll beat you next time, he shouted. The taller boy just turned away. And the girl with the long hair, her name came to Naruko suddenly, though she didn't know how, Rin, stepped forward and placed a hand on his shoulder. You did great. The boy smiled. Naruko's chest tightened. There was warmth in this world, too much. It felt fragile. And just before she woke, she saw a ripple, a flicker of light becoming shadow. A mirror crack forming. Something was coming for that joy. The third dream came like a storm. She was running this time. Down a long tunnel of stone and flame. The boy was older now, nearly a man, but his face was twisted with desperation. He was reaching for something, someone, crying out a name that Naruko couldn't hear. The world around him shook. Hands reached from the darkness. Masked faces. Red clouds. She saw flashes. Fire. Screams. Sand-stained rivers. An explosion of chakra that shattered trees. And then... a mask. Not orange. White. Cracked. Blood dripping from its edge. Naruko stumbled in the dream, breath catching in her throat. The boy fell to his knees, screaming soundlessly. When he looked up, half his face was missing, torn, burned, broken. But it was the eyes that struck her. One eye wide and wild. The other, red. Swirling. Sharingan. She jolted awake. She sat up in her bedroll, chest heaving, hands trembling. The dream had been too vivid. Too real. She wasn't supposed to see that. It wasn't hers to know. But now she couldn't unsee it. Naruko pressed her hand to her heart. It was still racing. Not from fear, but from ache. I'm dreaming about his pain, she whispered to herself. Why? The question echoed through her mind the next day, and the one after that. Every time she trained, she saw flashes of the tunnel. Of the girl, Rin, smiling before fading into smoke. Every time she saw someone smiling in the camp, she remembered how the boy in the dream smiled too, before the fire came. She didn't know how it was possible, but she felt it down to her bones. These weren't ordinary dreams. They were pieces. Pieces of a life hidden behind a mask. She couldn't help but wonder. Was he dreaming about her too? It wasn't long before they met again. This time, it was beneath a quiet sky, pink with the start of dawn. The forest still held the hush of night. Mist curled around the grass, soft as a whisper. He was waiting for her near a stream. Naruko didn't say anything right away. She just stood across from him, studying his posture. He was always calm. Controlled. But this time, he looked tired. "Tobi," she said, voice quieter than usual. He didn't look up. She walked closer, step by step, until she was sitting across from him on the other side of the stream. "I had a dream," she said. His head twitched. But he said nothing. "I saw you," she went on. "As a boy. You were laughing. Playing with a girl. Her name was Rin." He went still. She took a slow breath. "There was another boy too. Kakashi, right? And a teacher." Still no reply. "I didn't mean to see it. But I did." And then the dreams got darker. Tobi finally looked up. She couldn't see his face. But the way his shoulders tensed told her everything. "I saw pain. And fire. And a mask. Before the one you wear now." He was silent. She reached out a hand across the stream, letting it hover just above the surface. "I know you didn't show me those dreams," she said. "But they found me. I think your heart wanted me to see." His voice came low, barely audible. "I didn't want you to pity me." "I don't," she said, firm. "I feel for you. That's not the same. I don't want your forgiveness." "Good. Because I haven't offered it." She gave him a small, honest smile. "I just want you to know. I understand you more now. And it makes me want to stay. Not leave." He said nothing for a long time. Then, "I wasn't always like this. I know. I wanted to protect people once. You still can." He turned to her, and though she couldn't see his face, she felt the weight of his eyes on her. "You really think someone like me deserves that kind of faith?" "Yes," she said simply. He looked away. "Then maybe. I'm dreaming too." Naruko sat quietly by the riverbank, the soft murmur of water weaving around her thoughts like a gentle song. The sky above was a vast canvas of pale blues and gentle golds, the calm before twilight's hush. Her fingers traced patterns in the dirt beside her, her mind turning over the fragments of all the moments she'd shared with him. She thought about the boy behind the spiral mask, the one who carried so many secrets and pains wrapped around him like armor. For weeks, she had wrestled with questions she didn't dare voice aloud. Who was he beneath that mask? What shadows haunted him? And most terrifyingly, what did it mean to care for someone so broken, so fragile in the spaces he refused to show? The truth bloomed slowly in her heart, not in a sudden, bright flash, but in a quiet, steady warmth that filled every corner of her being. She loved him. Not despite his scars, but because of them. Every crack in his armor, every whisper of vulnerability, every silent tear she knew he'd shed, they were pieces of the person she was learning to love. Her breath caught as she realized something profound. Love wasn't about perfection. It wasn't about only embracing the parts that shone brightly. Real love was a soft, steady flame that reached into the darkness, that accepted the shadows and the light as one. Her gaze drifted to the horizon, where the first stars began to twinkle, shy and scattered. She could still hear his voice, the quiet moments, the almost whispers, the silence between his words. Those silences spoke louder than anything else. They told stories of pain, hope, fear, and strength. Naruko smiled faintly. She didn't just love the boy with the mask. She loved all of him, even the parts he wished no one would ever see. Later that evening, beneath the sheltering boughs of an ancient oak, they met again. He stood there, the orange spiral mask catching the last rays of sunlight, casting soft shadows over his face. His posture was more relaxed than usual, the tension that usually tightened his shoulders eased by her presence. Naruko stepped forward, the air between them humming with unspoken feelings. "I think I'm beginning to understand," she said softly. His head tilted slightly, curiosity flickering in the eye she could see. "I don't just want to see your face," she continued, "or know your name. I want to see everything you are, the strong parts, the broken parts. The light and the dark." He was silent for a moment, then the mask shifted just a little, as if considering her words. "Why?" he finally asked, voice low and raw. "Because loving someone means holding all of who they are," she replied. "Not just the parts that are easy to love." It means being there when the cracks show, and telling them they're still whole to you. His fingers twitched. Naruko reached out, hesitating only a heartbeat before letting her hand brush against his. The touch was featherlight but charged with meaning. "I love all of you," she whispered, "even the parts you try to hide. Especially those parts." He didn't pull away. For the first time, the mask felt less like a barrier and more like a fragile shell that could be gently cracked open, not to break, but to let the light inside shine through. Naruko's hand lingered against his, the warmth seeping through her fingers. She watched as the mask's spiral seemed almost to soften in the fading light, the rigid lines melting into something more fragile, more human. The forest around them grew still, the rustle of leaves and chirping of crickets pausing, as if the world itself held its breath. She thought about all the times she had seen him from afar, alone, carrying burdens too heavy for one person, yet never letting them show. How often he'd laughed quietly to himself, that bittersweet smile that never quite reached his eyes. The way he always appeared to be watching, waiting, protecting something even when no one asked him to. Naruko squeezed his hand gently. "It's okay to be afraid," she said softly. "It's okay to be tired. You don't have to carry everything alone." His body stiffened, but then slowly relaxed, as if her words unlocked a door inside him. "You're brave," she told him, "for letting me in this far." He didn't speak, but the tilt of his head was enough. They sat like that for a long while, hands entwined, two souls quietly reaching toward each other in the fading light. Naruko felt a swell of something new, something deeper than friendship, gentler than infatuation. It was love, not as a grand gesture, but as a steady presence, a safe harbor in the storm. As night folded over the forest, stars blinked alive in the sky above them. The first fireflies began to dance near the grass, tiny lanterns floating in the dark. Naruko leaned her head slightly toward him, careful not to break the fragile space between them. "You don't have to hide behind that mask," she whispered. "Not with me." The orange spiral caught the moonlight for a moment, gleaming softly. He shifted, almost imperceptibly, as if the weight of the mask felt lighter. In that quiet, tender moment, Naruko understood. She loved him, all of him, the broken, the brave, the beautiful parts hidden beneath the mask. And that love wasn't about fixing or changing him. It was about accepting him, completely. The moment stretched into a promise. Naruko watched the fireflies dance, their tiny lights flickering like whispered secrets between them. The night wrapped around the two of them like a soft blanket, and for once, the usual buzz of thoughts in her mind quieted to a gentle hum. She thought about how much she had changed since meeting him. Before, she had always felt like she needed to be strong all the time, strong for her village, strong for her family, strong for herself. But with him, she had learned that strength wasn't just about power or endurance. Sometimes, strength was quiet. It was vulnerability. It was the courage to let someone see your scars without fear. Her fingers tightened slightly on his hand, as if to anchor herself to that truth. "I used to think love meant making someone perfect," she said softly, not sure if she was speaking aloud or just thinking. "But now I see. Love means accepting the imperfect. Loving the cracks and the shadows, the parts that scare us." He shifted beside her, the mask turning just a bit toward her, the familiar spiral pattern catching the moonlight. It was a symbol she'd grown to understand in a way she never expected, not just a barrier, but a story. "You don't have to be perfect for me," she whispered. "You just have to be you." His hand squeezed hers in response. A small gesture, but it carried the weight of 1,000 words. Naruko smiled to herself, feeling warmth spread through her chest. This was real. This was love, not the kind told in grand tales or flashy displays, but the quiet kind that grows in shared silences, in trusted glances, in gentle touches. She thought about the dreams she'd had, the memories not hers, the pain he carried. And yet, none of it pushed her away. Instead, it made her want to stay, to be there for him through every shadow and every light. "I love all of you," she said again, her voice steady. "Even the parts you hide. Especially those parts." He didn't say anything. He just sat close, letting the night hold them together. And in that quiet, shared space, Naruko knew, love wasn't about changing someone. It was about choosing to stay, to understand, to accept. With him, she had found that kind of love. And that was more powerful than any mask. Naruko sat cross-legged on the soft moss beneath the tall pines, the scent of pine needles and earth filling the air. She could hear the distant calls of nocturnal creatures, the rustling of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze. Above, the sky was a dark velvet sprinkled with countless stars, each one winking like a promise whispered across time. She closed her eyes and let the quiet wash over her, letting the day's weight settle away. Her thoughts drifted inevitably back to him, the boy behind the spiral mask, the man whose silence was louder than words, whose presence had become a strange kind of home. For weeks, she had carried an unfamiliar warmth in her chest. It was not the frantic beating of first infatuation, nor the tentative flutter of curiosity. It was something deeper, something patient, steady, like a flame glowing softly in the dark. Naruko's fingers brushed a stray leaf from her lap, and her mind wandered through the fragments of moments they'd shared, the way he listened without judgment, how he guarded the fragile hope within himself even when the world seemed determined to break him. The mask, she now realized, wasn't just a shield. It was a symbol of all the pain he bore alone, the parts of himself he feared revealing. But she didn't want him to hide anymore. A sudden memory stirred in her mind, a quiet afternoon when he had spoken with a gentleness so rare it surprised her. He had shared a story from his past, not through words but through the trembling of his hands, the way his eyes flickered with memories he dared not voice. Naruko remembered feeling a sudden surge of tenderness, not pity, but a deep, heartfelt connection. It was as if she saw the invisible threads of his soul, the wounds, the hopes, the quiet battles, and something inside her whispered that these were the pieces she wanted to hold close. Love, she thought, wasn't about perfection or easy answers. It was about choosing to be present for someone's whole story, the joy and the pain, the light and the darkness. Naruko opened her eyes and looked up at the stars again, a quiet resolve blossoming within her. She wanted to be the person who saw him completely. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Just then, footsteps approached softly behind her. She didn't turn immediately. "I was wondering if you'd be here," came the familiar voice, soft, low, hesitant. Naruko smiled without looking back. "I like the quiet." He sat down beside her, the air shifting with the faint scent of wood smoke. For a long moment, they simply listened to the night together. Then, he spoke, voice barely above a whisper. "Sometimes, I wonder if I deserve to be seen." Naruko's heart clenched. "Everyone deserves to be seen," she replied, her voice firm yet gentle. "Not just the easy parts, but the ones that scare us the most." He sighed, a sound that seemed to carry years of weariness. "I'm not sure I know how to be open," he confessed. "Not like you." Naruko turned to face him, the moonlight revealing the curve of his mask and the soft tilt of his head. "It's not about knowing," she said quietly. "It's about trying. And I'll try with you." His hand reached out, hesitating before finding hers. A small squeeze. A silent promise. Naruko realized then that loving him was not about grand declarations or heroic feats. It was about the courage to be vulnerable, the willingness to stand beside someone in their darkest moments and say, "I am here." She smiled, a warmth spreading through her chest that no mask or shadow could ever hide. "Let me see all of you," she whispered. And in that moment, beneath the vast, starry sky, Naruko knew she did. The night was thick with silence, the kind that feels full of possibilities and hidden truths. Naruko and he sat side by side beneath the towering pines, their hands still loosely intertwined. The stars above twinkled quietly, distant witnesses to a moment neither of them wanted to end. Naruko's heart was steady, but a small knot of unease twisted in her stomach. There was something unsaid, something just beyond the edge of her understanding. She realized that loving someone fully meant not only accepting the pieces she saw but also confronting the ones still hidden. He shifted, and the mask caught the moonlight for a fleeting second, revealing a small scar, not the mask itself, but a mark just beneath the edge, where the skin met the wood. Naruko's breath caught. The scar was old but tender, faint yet real, a silent story he had never shared. Without thinking, she reached out, fingertips brushing gently where the mask met his skin. Her touch was light, respectful, full of unspoken questions. He froze, the moment stretched tight between them. Then, in a voice so soft it might have been a whisper of the wind, he spoke. "There's more behind this mask than you know," he said, eyes fixed on the shadows beyond the trees. "Not just pain. Not just loss." Naruko's eyes searched his, the one she could see. They were pools of something deep, something she hadn't yet learned to read. "I've hidden parts even from myself," he continued, voice barely audible. "Pieces I'm afraid to face." A flicker of doubt passed through Naruko's heart. For a moment, she wondered if loving someone meant also loving the unknown, the parts too fragile or dark to reveal. But then she remembered the quiet strength in his eyes, the gentle courage in his voice. And she realized the truth. Love wasn't about having all the answers. It was about holding the questions together, even when the path was uncertain. She squeezed his hand gently. "I want to learn," she said softly. "All of it." His gaze met hers, and in that silent exchange, a new promise was made, not just to love, but to discover, to grow, to heal. The mask might still hide much, but Naruko's heart was ready. For every shadow. For every secret. For all of him. The night wrapped around them like a soft cloak, the stars above shimmering faintly through the thinning canopy. The world felt paused, as if holding its breath for what would come next. Naruko's fingers still rested lightly on the edge where the mask met his skin, tracing the faint scar she had discovered by accident. It was a small mark, but it told a story louder than words, one of pain, resilience, and secrets kept close. He didn't pull away, but the tension in his body told her how much this small moment mattered. "I don't always understand myself," he confessed quietly, voice threaded with something like shame or regret. "Sometimes the things I hide. Even I don't know why." Naruko looked up at the patch of sky visible through the branches, the stars blinking in quiet encouragement. She wanted to say something comforting, something that could reach him through the walls he'd built. "Maybe that's okay," she said gently. "Sometimes we don't have all the answers right away. Sometimes the hardest part is just letting someone be there with us while we figure things out." His gaze flickered to hers, the visible eye softening just a little. "You don't have to do this alone," she added, voice steady but full of warmth. He swallowed hard, like words were caught in his throat. Then, slowly, he shifted so the moonlight caught more of his mask's edge, revealing a small part of his cheek. Naruko's breath caught again, not because she saw something new, but because she realized how much trust it took for him to reveal even that. She squeezed his hand again, silently telling him she was ready. For hours, they sat beneath the ancient trees, sharing silence and the occasional whispered thought. Naruko felt a quiet peace settle over her, the kind that comes from knowing you are exactly where you're meant to be. Over the following days, their bond grew through gentle moments, small, quiet acts of connection that didn't need words. One afternoon, as sunlight spilled through the windows of an old, abandoned shrine, Naruko found him sitting alone, the mask tilted slightly as if inviting her to come closer. She stepped forward slowly, carrying a small bundle of wildflowers she'd picked earlier. Holding them out, she smiled. "For you," she said simply. His visible eye softened, the faintest smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Naruko sat beside him, the delicate scent of the flowers mingling with the warm air. They talked little, but the comfortable silence spoke volumes. Naruko realized that sometimes love was less about grand declarations and more about showing up, consistently, gently, without pressure. She learned to read the subtle shifts in his posture, the tiny cracks in his armor that revealed his true self bit by bit. And she discovered that the broken parts she once feared were the very parts she wanted to protect most fiercely. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon painting the sky in shades of lavender and rose, Naruko found herself alone in the village square. The lanterns flickered to life one by one, casting soft glows on the cobblestones. She thought about him, the boy who had become a quiet, steady presence in her life. The boy behind the mask, who carried more than she had ever imagined. Naruko wrapped her arms around herself, a gentle smile touching her lips. Loving him was not simple. It was a journey of patience and courage, of holding space for pain and hope in equal measure. But it was real. And it was hers. The early morning light spilled softly across the village, painting the rooftops with hues of gold and pink. The air was cool and fresh, carrying the promise of a new day. Naruko stood at the edge of the quiet forest, looking out over the path where he often came and went, Tobi, the boy with the spiral mask, the boy she had come to love. She held the memory of their many moments close, the quiet evenings by the river, the gentle sharing of secrets, the silent promises made without words. Each memory was a thread woven into the fabric of her heart. Naruko smiled softly, her fingers tracing the scar beneath her sleeve, a hidden reminder of trust and vulnerability. She had learned something important: love was not about fixing what was broken, or uncovering every secret all at once. Love was about choosing to see all of someone, and accepting every piece with kindness and patience. She remembered his quiet words, the way he had said he hid parts even from himself. But she also remembered her own promise, to be there, no matter what, to hold the questions as gently as the answers. In the distance, footsteps approached, light and familiar. Naruko turned, and there he was, the boy with the mask, standing just a few feet away, the morning light catching the edges of the spiral. Their eyes met, and for a moment, there were no words needed. Naruko stepped forward, closing the space between them, her heart steady and sure. She reached out, fingertips brushing lightly over the edge of his mask. "It's okay," she whispered. "I love all of you. The parts you show, and the parts you're still discovering." He hesitated, then slowly, the mask shifted, just enough to reveal a small, gentle smile. Naruko's smile grew, a warmth blooming deep inside. They stood there, beneath the wide morning sky, two souls learning what it meant to love beyond the surface, to love all the broken, beautiful pieces that made them whole. And in that quiet moment, Naruko knew they would face whatever came next together. Because love, real love, was patient. It was gentle. It was brave. And it was enough. That's all for today, everyone. If you enjoyed this, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for your support. 6 Path Weeb.